In this episode, I'm chatting with Ehab about his unique real estate investing niche. Check this out. He bought a sixplex and spent $150 on interior design just for one unit. Then he replicated that design across all 6 units and listed them on Airbnb. The result? He ended up grossing $15,000 a month and for 7 years consistently. So watch the full episode to see how he pulled it off. Hey, it's V Lee and you are watching the Real Estate Baller Show. If you have enjoyed our video and found value in our channel, please do me a quick favor and hit that subscribe button. It helps us more than you know and allows us to help more people achieve financial freedom. All right, just a quick heads up. The video quality isn't the best in this episode and I apologize for the blur, but trust me, the content is top-notch. Ehab shares some fantastic insight you won't want to miss. Thank you and enjoy the show. Hey Ehab, welcome to the Real Estate Baller Show. It's so amazing to have you here. Where are you from?
Houston, Texas.
Where are you located?
Right out of Houston.
Houston, Texas. Born and raised?
Mostly, New York City,
All
then
right.
Houston.
I knew it. I knew you had some of that New Yorkie in you somewhere. All right. So I consider you a very successful investor, real estate investor. You know, you have a good heart. You very giving, tact about your decisions. Do you consider yourself successful?
I like to think so. My goal as a real estate investor.
I'm sorry to throw a loaded question at you right off the bat here.
Yeah. I mean, it all depends on how you define success, but I've certainly found a good balance between creating a great business and great income, balancing with family, balancing with my hobbies and my kids and the things that I love to do. So in that sense, I feel very successful.
So success to you means the ability to balance between different responsibility in life. Did I sum it up?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, balance is such an important part of who we are as people, even if you're making a lot of money, but it's sacrificing a lot of family time. I don't think that's sustainable in the long run. And so being able to find that balance between, working hard, but not so hard that you're kind of running your personal life to the ground, I think is the right approach for people to take.
Yeah, I feel that a lot of people, guests I interview on this show, the reason why they got into real estate is because they want more, right? So that's why it's important. Everyone defines success differently. And so, success to you mean different than success to me. And therefore, I want to throw that questions out to you right at the beginning. Because again, I think you are successful. So let's backtrack and tell the world, tell the audience who you are.
Yeah, guys. Well, I'm Ehab Shukri, or known as Rehab with Ehab. I've been a real estate investor in Houston for a little over 20 years. I started in my later 20s, getting excited about real estate from watching get-rich-quick infomercials, which used to exist back in the day. Used to be able to watch guys with private planes and yachts and good-looking women, and they were using that to attract young guys or young ladies into real estate investing. So that was one of the things that got me excited back in my 20s, like what young guy in his 20s doesn't want a boat and plane and all that good stuff, right? And so, that got me into it. That got me thinking about more in life. I also had a job that was really boring, so I was trying to find a way to challenge myself because I wasn't moving up in my job. So a combination of those things is what really got me excited in real estate early on. And, I got into the real estate game flipping houses, which was popular, watching those HGTV shows. I really didn't know any better. I did that for 13 years. And unfortunately, what I didn't know about flipping is it's not really a build wealth type strategy. It's great for making some extra money and some extra income, especially if you have a good paying full-time job, which I did. But it's not great for building wealth and really building retirement in that sense, because it doesn't continue to pay you over and over and over again. So at 40, I kind of learned that hard lesson. I had done a bunch of flips. I didn't have any wealth coming in. I wasn't any closer to quitting my job at 40 than I was at 27 when I started. And that's when I really pivoted my real estate investment strategy into trying to buy and hold properties and building rental portfolio and starting to create wealth and residual income. I was given some good advice by a mentor who, really told me, that's the key. If I want to be able to live life on my terms and be financially free, I needed to own property and build a business that paid me consistently every single month, which I know you know all about that, V. So I did that at 40. I bought houses. I bought a lot of houses. I think I bought 12 houses that first year, and quickly learned that I didn't necessarily love landlording. I went to multifamily after that, and a friend of mine said to me, "Why don't you consider Airbnb?" He really was new to Airbnb at the time, even though Airbnb had been around a long time. Back in 2016 and 17, it was a fairly new concept for me, at least. And my first multifamily sixplex that I bought, I put them all on Airbnb, and that was my aha moment where I was like, this is how I'm going to achieve financial freedom. And by 2019, I quit my high-paying six-figure job and was a full-time real estate investor.
Well, that is so amazing.
Yeah.
Was it the Airbnb that actually got you to fall in love with real estate?
Yeah, I mean, I love the transformation that came from the rehabs that I was doing, and the fact that you get to flex your creative muscles. So I actually enjoyed that process. It comes with having to manage contractors, which isn't always the funnest thing to do as a real estate investor. But I did enjoy that transformation process. And the great thing about Airbnb is that it allows you to really get creative, especially if you want to make super cool, unique Airbnbs. And so that kind of took my creativity a step further. And that's what I really loved about Airbnb as well.
Well, I'm glad you're doing all the creative. I do want to hear, and I think our audience also want to hear about that niche that you do. But let's talk about your very first real estate deal. Where did you buy it? What happened? Did you make money?
Yeah, my first real estate deal, I fortunately did make money, or else I probably wouldn't be sitting here today. I found it on MLS, and actually I find a lot of my deals off MLS just because I work it pretty hard and I built good relationships with realtors. So I did find it off MLS. It was
I'm going to interrupt real quick and just have a quick pause. Just so people always think you can't find deal on MLS. And so I just want to call the attention to your moment here. You can find deals on MLS if you look hard enough.
Yeah, you look hard enough and you follow up and you make good offers and you build relationships. I think it's, it requires all those different skills, but, those are good skills that will help you buy deals from not just MLS, but from sellers or wholesalers or anybody, right? If you just build good relationships and make strong offers.
I'm sorry to
interrupt. No problem.
Yeah. You can go back.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a deal I found on MLS. It was, a pretty cosmetic rehab, which was right up my alley, especially, having no experience and not being handy at all. And I bought it. I remember I was able to buy it with a fairly conventional loan because it didn't need a whole lot of work. And I even negotiated with a seller and my lender to put $5,000 in escrow for the rehab because I thought $5,000 would be enough to do the rehab. Well, it wasn't enough to do the rehab. It ended up costing me about $12,000. And I think I had probably like $9,000 in the bank when I bought this property, after I had closed on it. So I had $5,000 in escrow, which I was able to get, and I went over an extra, $7,000. So I think I had $2,000 left over in the bank, being a 27-year-old kid doing my first flip. But fortunately, I sold it. I sold it for about $10,000 less than I thought I was going to sell it for. But I learned enough about like buying right and trying to use the 70% rule and things like that, where I had enough cushion that I ended up walking away making $8,000. So that was my first deal. The funny part about this story is, I don't come from a background of investor parents. So I remember when I told my mom I was buying a house to remodel it, she said to me, "Why are you buying a house? You already have a house." She didn't understand the concept of having two houses. Like, who owns two houses? And that's just kind of how my parents thought as investors. Like, not being investment type people, you own one house, you live in it, and that's pretty much the only house you ever own your entire life.
That's so amazing. And I'm so glad you make money. And that means you bought it right? So you spend more money on the rehab. That's a big mistake that a lot of investors make. You overestimated your ARV, so you make two crucial mistakes and you still make money, which is amazing, and I love it. So continue on from there. What happened next? What did you do?
Well, I typically take jobs, so making an extra $8,000 on top of that. is a nice bonus. And I said, let me go out and do that again. I bought another deal, actually made 30,000 on that rehab. Then next year I bought another one. So I was able to kind of consistently buy one rehab or so a year or every other year, which was great when you have a really good job and you're making an extra $20,000 or $30,000 a year in real estate doing a flip. It looks like you're on the right path to financial freedom when you're doing that.
I'm sorry for this interruption. I've been asked a lot about passive investment. And let's be real, there is nothing passive about being a landlord unless you have a really good property management company. So if you own an Airbnb or a short-term rental and you want to get back your time, please give our team at Buzz Vacation Rental a call at 281-549-8432 or go to our website at pm.buzzvacationrentals.com. Now back to the Real Estate Baller Show. If you were to reflect back on your journey of real estate investing, what would be the number one factor that contribute to your success?
It's interesting. I think for me, it's the fact that I came from such a middle-class family that it kind of motivated me to try to find a better way, than just working until you're 65 and then retiring. And, it's kind of backwards thinking because, a lot of times people are like, well, it's kind of, if you have parents that are investors, they're going to kind of motivate and inspire you to be an investor or their kids investors. But sometimes it works in your favor not having that advantage, right? Because then you're looking for a better way out, a better solution, a better way of navigating life without having to just be in the rat race every single day for 40, 50 years and then hope that you get to retire one day. So I think that probably was the biggest contributing factor, was just taking the fact that I came from middle-class parents and using that as motivation to find a better way out.
That's amazing. Your desire to want to be better and to want more out of life. And I think ultimately the freedom of doing whatever.
Yeah.
Right. So since you became an investor, what were the things that you could do, that you did, that you couldn't have done in the past if you were, still working your job?
Yeah. Oh gosh, there's just so many wonderful things about being your own boss, right? I mean, I'm sure, people can imagine a lot of the great things, but, I just got back from a trip from Costa Rica. I was just talking to you about that. I was gone for a week in Costa Rica. One, being able to afford that, right? I mean, that's what the financial freedom part of having your own business allows you to do. Two, I didn't have to ask anybody for time off. It's so weird that, I've been full-time since 2019, so about 5 years now. And, I still think about like having to ask for time off or having my calendar full of tons of meetings, because I was a consultant prior to going full-time real estate. And I just remember looking at my calendar and just having tons and tons of meetings every day. And it's those meetings that you're like, why am I even in this meeting to begin with? It's like, or the meeting that goes on for an hour or 2 hours and you're like, couldn't we have finished this in like 15, 20 minutes? But you have no control of that when you're in corporate America. You just have to go with the flow and not rock the boat and, say the right things so that you can keep moving your way up. Because, in corporate America, that's how you make more money, is by moving up. But when you own a business,
right,
you can make more money by just working harder and focusing on the right strategy. So that's where business really can reward you for all your hard work.
All right. So now let's get into your current successful strategy that you came about. I know that many people call them Airbnb, but people who follow our channel know I call them short-term rentals or vacation rentals. So tell us about that. I know you have a lot of success in that area. So tell us from the beginning to the end, what does it look like? How did you even decide? Or because to me, it's a huge gamble for investor. You got to go in, you got to create the concept, you got to spend a lot of money up front, to hopefully get a bigger payday down the line.
Yeah, for sure. And, I like to describe kind of 3 levels of short-term rentals. You have the Walmart, the Target, and the Nordstrom. And I like to keep my short-term rentals somewhere between Target and Nordstrom.
Can I interrupt here? We're very similar. I use a different terminology. I would say Motel 6 or Ritz-Carlton. That's my comparison of the short-term rental. But I love your Walmart, Target, and Nordstrom too.
So, I mean, I really got started in them when a friend of mine had suggested to me, I was in the middle of remodeling a 6-unit apartment, and a friend had suggested to me that I should look into short-term rentals, right, into short-term rental Airbnbs. And I didn't know anything about it. I took his word for it when he told me you can make 3 to 5 times the income through short-term rentals than you can doing traditional rentals. And so I kind of started looking into Airbnb. I knew you had that extra step of having to furnish it and interior design it, kind of like what you mentioned. And again, I wasn't sophisticated. So I remember for the interior design for my first short-term rental, I used a website called Havenly, which is a website that you can use to work with interior designers online. And it's very, very affordable. I think I spent like $100 per room or per apartment. And so I had them design, I paid $100 for them to design the living room. And I think I paid maybe another $50 for them to design 1 bedroom. And I just duplicated that design all throughout. So all 6 of my apartments all looked identical for my first short-term rent. Same furniture, same artwork, same everything. Maybe I changed the kind of the accent wallpaper in the bedrooms, but other than that, I kept them all very identical. I wasn't super creative. I put them on Airbnb, and mind you, they're all 2-bedroom, 1 bath in Houston. And I would have estimated the 6 of them would rent for about $1,200 each as long-term rent. But as short-term rentals, they made about $2,500 a month gross on Airbnb, or about $15,000 total on Airbnb. And I bought this property, I renovated it, so I got it at a really good deal. My mortgage was about $5,000. So me bringing in $15,000 a month for my first property and paying the utilities, the cleaners, the stockable, consumable items that get used up in Airbnb, I was really kind of walking away making $6,000 or so dollars a month. And that was really significant to me in terms of that much profit on one property. As a long-term rental, yeah, I wouldn't have as many expenses and I wouldn't have potentially as many headaches, but I probably only would have walked away making $1,800 to $2,000 a month as a long-term rental. So when I was trying to focus on how do I replace this 6-figure income that I have as a consultant, $6,000 a month in profit was really appealing and attractive to me, because that got me pretty close to on my way to replacing my job income. And realistically, with just maybe 2 more properties, that would have replaced my job income right there. So, I mean, I was really excited when I saw that.
That's amazing. So, okay, beside the design of your units, your home, right? What other factor that contribute to the success of this building? Is it the location? Was it, did you pick the right location? Was it the timing when you in the industry? And if so, has that changed now?
Yeah. So I will say confidently that I've been able to maintain that $15,000 a month average on this property ever since 2017. So for the last 7 years, I continue to make that amount of revenue every single month. Now, keep in mind, one of the great things about this property is, and multifamily short-term rentals, is the value of the property is based on how much income it produces, right? So it's very different from single-family homes. Single-family homes, the value is based on the appraisal. But because I was able to turn this 6-plex into a real big income producing property, the value of it went up significantly. And last year, that property that I bought for $235,000 as a fixer-upper, I sold it for $1.2 million last year. So I really took advantage of forced appreciation in the best way possible. Not only did I force the appreciation by renovating it, but I dramatically forced the appreciation by operating it as a short-term rental. And so when I go back and I look at why have I been so successful, it really comes down to something that I call value stacking, which is providing multiple avenues of value to your short-term rental, multiple components that add to the value of it. one of the components is being location. I think that's really important, being around popular areas or hospitals or arenas or venues. So a lot of my properties are located near the Texas Medical Center and the downtown Houston area and the venues that are around those particular areas, sports arenas. The second value stacking I have is in the design. So I have them nicely designed. I manage them well. So they also, I think from a customer perspective, the guest perspective, they really like the amenities that I offer there, you know? So I think that's super important too. And then, you know, I look for other ways to add value. Some of my Airbnbs have pools in them. So that's kind of another way that I value stack is by adding pools, because that's one of the number one searched amenities on Airbnb. So pools is a big thing. A lot of my students have hot tubs as well. But cool, Instagrammable, photo-worthy designs, I think, is what people are looking for, and that what really stands out and does well on Airbnb and as short-term rentals.
Hey, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Okay, so how much did you have to spend on furniture for the sixplex, and then how long did it take you to recoup your upfront costs?
Yeah. So the sixplex, you know, a lot of that furniture I bought from Wayfair, Target, you know, places like that. I think each unit cost me around $9,000 to furnish. So 9 times 6, about $54,000 total. And I was clearing, like I said, about $6,000 a month in profit on that particular property. So in just 10 months, I got all my money back from the furniture. And then the rest was just there.
Isn't that beautiful? Like it took 10 months to recoup your cash, and then the rest you just like you're right now you in indefinite return, right? Like you can't calculate a ROR on it. Because I'm sure you bought it where you didn't have to put a lot of down payment.
Yeah, so that's the other part of my strategy that I'm a big proponent of is buying right, and buying using the BRRRR strategy, the whole buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat strategy. And I just love that strategy for so many reasons. One of them is you're buying a property and getting a good deal on it because it needs a lot of work. It's in a lot of disrepair. 2, it gives you the opportunity to buy it with short-term financing and then refinancing it when you're done so that you can cash out and get your money back. So I love that. And I think the third thing I really love about it is it gives you options, right? So when you buy these fixer-uppers and you are finished with the rehab, you have options. You could turn it into a long-term rental. You could turn it into a short-term rental, which I love to do. You could even sell it for a flip and make a profit on it as a flip. There's a house right now, as a matter of fact, that I'm remodeling that I was planning on making it a short-term rental. But about halfway through the project, I decided, you know, I really want to focus more on multifamily, so I'm not going to turn this into a short-term rental. And now I have the luxury of selling it as a flip now that I'm done with the rehab and making a 6-figure profit on it as a flip. So the BRRRR strategy just gives you so many options, and that's why I just love following that approach on every property that I buy.
You're gonna have to invite me to go visit your short-term rental one of these days, so I can capture some of the beautiful properties and share it with our audience. Okay, so I'm sure it's not all rosy. I mean, the 6,000 sound wonderful. Who wouldn't love that $6,000 cash flow today? But tell us about your nightmare moments, because I'm sure you have them too.
Yeah, for sure you have nightmare moments in real estate. And, you know, there's so many too, from nightmares that you have during the rehab phase where the city will red tag you because you haven't pulled the right permit. And you've got to go through and get that resolved. And then there's the nightmare of the bad guests, which, you know, in my 7 years of doing short-term rentals, I've only had one true nightmare guest that really wrecked the place. Unfortunately, Airbnb has something called air cover, which they will fully reimburse you for any damages that guests do. So it's a great feature for hosts that use Airbnb. A lot of people talk about, well, you know, Airbnb takes a percentage and things like that. It's a pretty small percentage for hosts. It's only 3%, but it protects you in the event that there really is a nightmare guest. So I've had my one experience with a super bad guest, but then that, you know, you're in the hospitality industry, and with that comes your more difficult guests. You know, I mean, you have guests that will send you a message saying, this is the most comfortable bed I've ever slept in. Can you tell me where you bought this mattress from? And that same Airbnb, you'll have a guest tell you, this was the worst bed I've ever slept in. The mattress was so hard and I hated it, right? So you can't make everybody happy, and you just try to do your best to be the best customer service advocate that you can be, you know? Fortunately for me, I'm not always great with that. Sometimes I have a hard time holding my tongue, but my portfolio is big enough, and I also manage other people's properties, that I have two awesome assistants that do my property management for me. So they get to put on a smiling face, and they get to deal with the guest questions and respond as politely as possible whenever they're, being unreasonable. And I don't have to deal with that anymore. But, it's the hospitality industry. There's definitely more work than a traditional long-term rental. But what I always tell people is it's absolutely worth it. The $6,000 a month that I make versus the $1,800 a month that I would have made as a long-term rental, for me, it's worth it to pursue and keep it operating it as a short term. Not to mention the fact that forced appreciation that you get when I sold the property for $1.2 million was put a real smile on my face that day as well.
Well, I hope you have tax strategy in place where you didn't have to pay tax on that 1.2. And if you don't, you can always donate to the V Foundation if you need some tax write-off.
Sounds good.
Okay, so if you were to look and analyze a property today to convert to your short-term rental, what are you looking at, and what would be a no deal, like a deal breaker for you?
Yeah. The number one thing I'm looking at is, what is my out-of-pocket investment on this property going to be? People don't understand the concept of good deal, bad deal, and for me, it should be all about how much resources you have and what kind of return is this property going to get you, and does that align with your goals? So, if you have $100,000 in the bank and you put all that investing it in a property that only makes you a couple $100 a month, well, then that's a bad investment, because it didn't get you to your goals and you've used up all the savings that you've had. So I'm always looking at, what is my out-of-pocket investment going to be on this property, and what's the return? If I am going to be out of pocket $55,000 on the property, but it's going to make me $6,000 a month, like the example that I gave you for my first Airbnb, I'm okay with that, getting my money back in 10 months, right? I'm even okay with having $200,000 invested in a property if it's going to make me $20,000 a month in profit, which is what my 16-unit Airbnb does for me. We haven't even talked about the 16-unit one, but I have a 16-unit property that I've made all short-term rentals, So it's really about out-of-pocket versus return on investment. And that's the number one thing that I've got. The number two thing I look at would be just uniqueness and cool factor of the property. Does it have tall ceilings? Is it in a great location? It's something that I can do with this property to really make it stand out and be unique, that is going to attract more guests, or allow me to charge a higher rate, or charge maybe an event fee because it's set up nicely for events. So I look at ways that I can turn it into a super cool property, like I did with my mechanic shop that I bought and converted into a short-term rental, 4 short-term rentals. Ultimately, I had somebody reach out to me from a famous Houston rapper, and they asked if they could shoot a music video in one of my short-term rentals. So I actually have one of my Airbnbs was in a music rap video, and it's a cool thing to be able to kind of feature, and kind of confirmation that I'm doing things the right way as far as making cool, unique properties that people are excited about staying in.
Okay, so not all of us are creative. How do you go about finding what people want? Because that's the $1 million question.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. I think there's a few ways of doing that. I'm not super creative either, but it goes back to having a great team. I have an awesome interior designer on my team. I have a great architect on my team who helps me redesign my properties and reconfigure them to really maximize the best use of the space. I personally like to put myself in the guest shoes, right? I think that's something so easy and so simple to do, is think about what would be a cool experience for you, and what would you really like? Would you find it cool to stay in one of these geodomes on the lake or in a tiny home or a cabin. Think about the really cool experiences that you would enjoy and the types of amenities or features you'd want them to have there, and put yourself in your guest shoes to help you kind of come up with the ideas that potentially could be, great short-term rentals. And then it's about kind of building your team from there, right? Working your network of other investors, reaching out to people say, hey, do you have a great interior designer? Do you have a great architect, contractors? I think you can use that for so many different resources that are an important part of being a successful real estate investor and short-term rental operator, and leverage that team and build that team. But most importantly, I think what's cool for a lot of us will be cool for other people too. So, go on Airbnb, take a look at their section on unique properties, because Airbnb now has started to kind of categorize things by different types of cool properties, and take a look at them. You might find a short-term rental that's made out of a side of a mountain in a cave. You might find tree houses. You'll see all kinds of cool things there, and you can kind of zoom in, see where they're located, get an idea of what they look like, and use that to start building your ideas of what your portfolio could look like.
All right, let me play devil advocate for a bit, because I'm also, I have short-term rental, and we manage short-term rental for other clients. The one of the challenge in operation is you can create all these beautiful uniqueness, but the key to maintaining them so they can stay the same consistently, because we all know guests move furnitures, guests move things for God know why. Right? And a painting was here, got placed there, they just feel like it's better that way. Who knows? How do you stay, maintain the integrity of the property so that they always look like the pictures?
That's a tough one, and it comes down to having a great cleaning team is what I've learned. I actually just recently, in the last 3 months, went from using and hiring cleaners to bringing my own in-house cleaning team in, which I think is probably a natural transition for a lot of people as they get bigger and bigger with their portfolios. Probably everybody starts off using like turnover B&B or just hiring a cleaning company in the beginning, but as you get bigger, that's really your opportunity to start looking at bringing cleaning in-house and having a lot more control over how cleaning is done and how the furniture gets reset or how the artwork gets put back in place. I've been working on that constantly with my new training team. I give them access to all the photos, those original, perfect, pristine photos that you take when your Airbnb is brand new, so they can see what it's supposed to look like. And I'll ask them to meet me there, and I'll say, let's go do a walkthrough of this property you just cleaned, and let's look and see if anything was not done correctly. So investing in those quality checks. But when you do that enough times, they start to really get the hang of it, and you'll get much better results out of your cleaners and much more consistent turnovers than if you just sit idly and not take the time to do those quality checks and really guide them through the mistakes that they've made so they can get better.
Yeah, I totally agree. We've used companies in the past too, but when we ask for certain things, it's so hard. It's like twisting a lot of arms just to get the one simple things done. So I'm in agreement with you of using, your own in-house cleaning crew. You get so much more quality, in my opinion. Okay, so someone who's looking into getting this again, short-term rental game again, where do you think they, like, for someone who doesn't have any rental and want to get into the short-term rental space, you already gave them 3 key points earlier, but then as they get this property already, what challenges they might face and how should they prepare themselves for it? But why I ask this question, because I think it's like a never ending when you get into this short-term rental game. It's 24/7, like, hospitality.
Yeah. Well, I think there's so many components to this that it is challenging to try to do it on your own, because you need to have all the right infrastructure in place with your dynamic pricing, with your automated messages, with your cleaning team, with setting up your listing properly, making it cool and stand out so that you do get booked. And so there are a lot of different components to it. And, they're all things that you can either, learn over time, or you can try to do as much research as you can or you just learn from the school of hard knocks, or you've done it and has experience and just try to, leverage them, right? And, we've all kind of had mentors, especially successful real estate investors. I'm sure you've had mentors before too, both formal mentors and informal mentors, right? And those are the people that you really can rely on to help you get past those difficult situations, because no doubt about it, you're going to have challenges building your real estate business. And no doubt about it, if your goal is financial freedom, then we are talking about building a business. We're not just talking about going out and doing one or two good deals. We're talking about building a real business. And I tell people all the time, there is no business you can build that doesn't have challenges. So just be prepared to have challenges, and either have a great mentor, have a great role model, or prepare to learn from the school of hard knocks, figure it out as you go. I mean, those are really kind of your options, I think, when you talk about diving into this, kind of head first.
I hear through the grapevine that you actually teach people how to do this the right way.
I do teach people how to do this. I'm super passionate about real estate and financial freedom and helping people achieve their goals. And almost every person I talk to about real estate investing who wanted to take me to lunch or coffee, every time I talk to them, I ask them, what's your goals? And it's always to be able to live the dream, right? To do this full time, to live life on your terms, to buy back your financial freedom, to not have to report to your boss and ask for PTO. So all the things that we dream about is what I hear from 99% of the people that want to invest in real estate. And because I wasted so much time doing things the wrong way, I created the Rehab with Ehab Academy to show people how to do things the right way. It's all about helping you understand what we kind of talked about, finding the good deals, how to find them, how to analyze them, how to operate and execute a good B&B strategy, managing contractors, building your team. I actually give my students my whole team so they don't have to go out and figure it out on their own, because I'm trying to help them avoid getting burned by that bad contractor. Because again, if you don't have a mentor, if you don't have somebody giving you good recommendations, then you're going to get burned inevitably if you do enough deals. And I've been burned, right? I've been burned, and I'm sure you've been burned before too with all the real estate that you've done. And I try to make it as painless as possible for my students, so that they're at least not making the catastrophic mistakes that take them out of the game, right? And the catastrophic mistakes that take you out of the game is like losing all your money to a bad contractor, or buying a bad property that you just can't recover from, overpaying for a property, or completely blowing out your rehab budget when you just didn't account for all the work that needed to be done. So there's really big mistakes out there that can take you out of the game completely or set you back for years. And so that's what I really try to put together with the Academy, to show people how to buy properties the right way, and ultimately how to squeeze the most amount of money you can out of them, turning them into short-term rentals. And that's what my students do. And I have students on one property alone making $20,000 to $25,000 a month in revenue on a property. And I just tell them all the time, you just don't know how good you have it, because there's very few properties out there that will make you $20,000 or $25,000 a month, unless you're buying multi-million-dollar apartments. And that's not what they're buying. They're buying like small multifamily that they're converting into super cool short-term rentals. And, they might be all in it for $700,000-$800,000 after the purchase from the rehab. But that $800,000 property is making $20,000 to $22,000, $23,000 a month, which is an incredible return.
That's a unicorn. That person is ruined forever. They're going to think every deal is like that.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. So what advice would today's Ehab have for your 18-year-old Ehab?
My advice for that person is going to be, don't be afraid to take chances. Find a good mentor. Find somebody that has what you want. If you do what they did, you'll get what they got, right? It's kind of a way that I've learned about things in life. So find a good mentor. Don't be afraid to invest in a good mentor. Make sure you're doing the right strategy that aligns with your goals. Because so many people I talk to say, oh, I want to be a flipper. I said, well, do you really want to be a flipper, or what's your goal? They're like, oh, well, I want to just be able to retire and collect, income off my properties. Well, then you don't want to be a flipper then because you're not making income off your properties and just sitting back and retire. You've created a flipping job for yourself. So make sure you're clear with your goals, and your strategy aligns with your goals. And then most importantly, don't be afraid to be super self-aware of your strengths and your weaknesses. Because I think that's something that people don't understand as entrepreneurs is you don't have a boss telling you what you're doing right or doing wrong. You have to be so self-aware and self-critical in a good way, right? In a constructive way. But you have to be honest with yourself and say, you know what, I'm not good at that. I need to hire somebody or work with somebody who's going to be good at that. I'm not great at finding deals. Let me really create a great relationship with a wholesaler or a realtor who's going to help find me deals, Or I'm not great at estimating repairs. Let me find a really good contractor, take them to coffee, take them to lunch, who's willing to go look at properties with me to help me figure out the rehab estimate, And understand what your limitations are, and don't be afraid to ask for help and recognize that that's not something you're good at, so that you can fill those gaps with the right people who are good at those things.
I hope your 18-year-old is patient enough to listen.
He probably wouldn't be.
All right. So what are your hobbies?
I love travel. Fortunately, travel is one of those things that you can, it's expensive, but it's something I can afford to do with my real estate business, both financially and having the time freedom to be able to do that. And I love tennis. I'm a big tennis fan. So almost every afternoon, starting at 3 o'clock or 3:30, I'm going and playing tennis. I'm indoors here in Houston because it's super hot, but also I don't have to worry about the weather or the rain. So I have a pretty good group of people I play tennis with. So I'm in the gym or playing tennis almost every day or every other day. And then just spending time with my family, making new memories, mentoring my kids who are, 22 and 20. So they're at the age where, they're ready to start hearing about being successful and investing and taking chances and being comfortable being uncomfortable. So I'm talking to them now, and they're old enough where now they just got to hear it and put up with it from me, because that's what I'm gonna do.
Well, let me tell you my tennis story. So I signed up for tennis through Meetup, and these kids, younger kids, they meet up over at Lamar High School. So I came, I play, and it's time to split up in team 2 of 2. And this one kid, I don't know, they were assigning him to me because obviously nobody was picking me. And so he's turned over and look at the other kid and go, hey, well, you want to be together? I'm like, okay, I get it. I suck. So maybe I need a tennis mentor.
Yeah. Well, I definitely have had my share of tennis coaches over the years. I believe in the mentorship, even in the tennis world. So I've gotten pretty good just having the right coaches and learning the right techniques. So that's been helpful. But it's a tough sport, I will tell you that.
It is. All right, last question for the day. I bet you the audience love your story, love what you share, love what you have done. How do they get in touch with you?
Well, so my brand is Rehab with Ehab. So if you want to get in touch with me, check out my website, rehabwithehab.com. Definitely follow me on Instagram, Rehab with Ehab, because I'm always giving out some great tips. You can see the types of projects that my students are working on or that I'm working on, so you can get an idea directly of what our short-term rentals look like. I also put great content on YouTube as well. So Rehab with Ehab on YouTube. And just feel free to reach out and send me a message, and I'll respond back and help you out. Hopefully I can help you out any way that I can.
My biggest takeaway from Ehab, there is more than one way to make it happen. So go ahead, guys, make it happen. By the way, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss another wonderful episode from the Real Estate Ballers. Thanks for joining us, and see you in the next episode.